Last time you joined us for action from the Britpart British Cross Country Championship, we had exactly that. Action at Sweet Lamb, and it would be victory on the event for Rick Mann. But with him not being registered for the championship points, it would be maximum points on the board for Mark Jacks, enough to put him in the lead of the championship standings going into round 4 this weekend. Previous round winner though, Justin Birchall, would have put his championship on the back foot a little, crashing out of round 3. Not the way he would have seen his event ending this weekend. Would this weekend be any better? It would remain to be seen. Round 4 would see the crews head south to Bovington, usually a proving ground for tanks. This weekend was going to be challenging for both man and machine. Let's head out onto those morning runs of the first day of the competition then, and we'd see a new name at the top of the leaderboard. Jason Rowland's Liam Dudley taking the early advantage with a 12-second lead midway through the opening day. Behind Jason on the results would be Dad Paul Rowlands, with Neil Lloyd alongside. This weekend looking to be a Rowlands-dominated result at the top of the leaderboard, especially at this early stage. And after that disappointing and dramatic crash on the previous round, it would be a bit more pressure on this man, Justin Birchall. Johnny Coonja alongside for a result at the 4th round of the series. They do get off to a good start, but would still be almost a minute off the lead after 3 runs. Understandably, perhaps, there would be some caution to the first run of the day for Andy DiGiulio and Paul Foley after also crashing out of the previous round. But the pace wouldn't take long to pick up, setting some leading times as the morning went on, ending run 3 with 4th on the leaderboard. And it would be a much better start to the event for Ryan and Darren Cook. They'd struggled this season with various issues. This weekend, though, was going to plan so far. The times were reflecting that as well. Still a long way to go, but 2nd in the class and 5th place overall for now was a confident start. And talking of confidence, fresh from another podium finish, it would be a good start once again here for Phil Bayliss and Lance Murphy. They probably wouldn't be expecting another podium with these rough conditions in that car. But then they didn't expect them at the previous rounds either, if you'd have spoken to them. 6th place for now, leading the class. Chris and Oliver Speakman were finding some good lines to get them through the tricky course this weekend. The pair leading the way in Class 4, as well as 7th place on the overall leaderboard. And it would also be a class lead to start the day for Austin Riley and Philip Richards. The Class 15 pair going well, the times coming down as well as the morning went on. Having missed the previous round, Steve Smith and John Griffiths have some catching up to do. Things seemed to be going in the right direction for the pair as well, putting in some consistent times over the morning's 3 runs to lie in 9th. And rounding out our competitive top 10 at this stage were Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell. They were enjoying the event, but were struggling to find the right pace in the unique wet and sandy conditions that this venue was throwing up. Richard Lane and John Tomley, meanwhile, will be the Class 13 leaders over the morning's runs. Richard, a road tester for Autocar magazine, entering this round for a feature on Bowler, one of our championship sponsors, of course. Things going well for the journalist in 11th place overall. Harry Nicol and Emily Sibley joined the championship this weekend for a one-off outing. Also, their first time with Emily navigating on an event as well. The pair lying 2nd in class at this stage as well as 12th overall. Jesus Navarro and Raquel Dorado are usually seen competing on endurance events. But this weekend, they bring the McRae Enduro out in the British Cross Country Championship. The sand here may be a little wetter than they were used to, but they were going well in 13th overall, and great to see that car out as well. One crew not having much luck would be our championship leaders, Mark Jacks and Adam Nicholson, stopping on the course when the diffs locked on the Lofthouse Freelander, meaning a maximum for run 2, 14th overall at this early stage. It was another bowler in the hands of Richard Hayward and Greg McLeod, who'd be sharing the driving duties this weekend. They start the event off with 15th, 5th in Class 10. Chloe Jones and Chris Aldridge reached the end of the opening runs with the lead in Class 7. The run times starting to come down as the morning went on, so they could hopefully challenge for a few overall places over the rest of the event. It wouldn't have been the best of starts, though, it's fair to say, for Victoria Vaughan and Matthew Rowland. The wiper coming off on the first run, having to pull over and sort that out, losing time in the process, of course, and putting them back in 18th overall. It will be a similar story of woe for Richard Green and Richard Griffiths, but their issue would be the fan belt. They end the morning with 2 maximums, 19th overall, and pretty disappointed with that start to the event. A grueling event this, hard to believe that we're only a quarter of the way through. The morning of day 1 complete, the results at this early stage in the event starting to shape up, and they look like this. On we go then to the afternoon runs here in the British Cross Country Championship, and we would still see Jason Rowlands and Liam Dudley here at Bovington leading the way at the end of the first day. The pair with a significant lead and showing some great pace, and it didn't look like abating either here at round 4. Despite there being no change at the top of the leaderboard, the rest of the positions would be swapping around as the day went on. Justin Birchall and Johnny Coonja now lying second, gradually getting the setup on the car right for the course this weekend, all important going into day 2. Things were still going well, meanwhile, for Ryan and Darren Cook, the course suiting the power of the car and allowing them to move their way up into the podium positions at the end of the first day of competition. Unfortunately for Andy Giulio and Paul Foley, things were not going quite so well. They'd retire early into the afternoon runs. Thankfully for them, this time mechanical instead of a crash, but a non-finish. Nonetheless, certainly not what they wanted from this round after starting with such good pace. There'd be problems as well for the man who was previously in second place through the morning, Paul Rowlands, with Neil Lloyd alongside. A broken belt on the Par home-sponsored car would give them a slower time on run 5, putting them down in 4th place, but still with some fighting spirit left in there for another day of racing. Things were still going to plan if you spoke to Phil Bayliss and Lance Murphin, though. They were keeping up a good pace overall, but a problem on run 5 would see them distance themselves from the lead a little. They do still remain in 5th overall, though, at the end of day 1. In 6th, it's Ocean Riley and Dave Hooper, first in Class 15 as well. Dave sitting in for some laps this weekend, sharing the duties with Philip Richards. For Steve Smith and John Griffiths, it would be 7th place overall. The pair going well and lying second in Class 10 at this stage in the event. With the car finally recovered and fixed, ready for some more racing, it will be a weekend of climbing back up the results for Mark Jacks and Adam Nicholson, but would it be a fight back? They were doing a good job for now. 8th place at the end of day 1, and with potential to gain a few more positions with that kind of pace on the next day of competition. Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell were getting quicker, ending the day with 9th place. That would be as far as they would go, though. Frustratingly, an undetermined engine knocking would force them to put the car on a trailer at the end of day 1. They'd be going home early, ruining what might have been with that fight back. Suspension tweaks over the winter had transformed the car for Harry Nicol and Emily Sibley. They were able to put in times to end the day rounding out the top 10, as well as lying second in the class behind Damrell, who of course wouldn't be out for day 2, so something to inherit there, and pace to see them fighting up ahead into the second day. Let's take a look at some of the positions outside of our top 10 leaderboard. It will be the Class 11 lead for Jesus Navarro and Raquel Dorado. Things still going well in that McRae car. The endurance car still at home on the British Championship course this weekend. Richard Lane and John Tomley were clearly getting to grips with the car and the course pretty fast. They keep a good pace to end day 1 with 12th overall. One of the toughest road tests Richard will have to do for Autocar magazine for a while. Victoria Vaughan, meanwhile, had enlisted the help of Dave Hooper for the second half of day 1. Dave giving Victoria some driver coaching. This all led to a move up the results and into 13th place overall, as well as 3rd in the class. For Chloe Jones and Chris Aldridge, it would still be the Class 7 lead at this stage, the pair going well, and the times by the end of the day now a minute faster than they were when they started on this course. Problems, though, would ruin the day for Chris and Oliver Speakman. They break the suspension on run 4. They do get things fixed with the help of fellow competitors. Remember, this is Clubman Motorsport at its very, very best. But unfortunately, it would break again on the final run of the day, meaning retirement from the pair from 15th place overall. With Greg and Charlotte McLeod taking over in the bowler for a few runs, there'd be mixed fortune. Some good times were being set, but on run 5, they'd suffer a faulty steering rack, gaining a maximum time and putting them on the back foot. Things were very much on the front foot, though, for Richard Green and Richard Griffiths now, who were back on track. The times looking good. Sadly, the damage to their results had already been done this morning. They end the day with 17th overall, and surely wishing that they'd had a better start. So we reached the end of day 1 here at Bovington, and the leaderboard at the 4th round of the Britpart British Cross Country Championship is shaping up like this. We head into the second day of grueling competition then here at round 4 of this series, and we see some major changes to the leaderboard. We get a new leader, for that matter, Justin Birchall and Johnny Kunja stepping up to take that top spot at the midpoint of day 2. Their lead in that position looking strong as well. Part of the reason for that change will be problems for this man, Jason Rowland's Liam Dudley alongside. They break something on the car in run 7, putting them down to 5th place. Sadly, they wouldn't be able to get things fixed and get back out, adding maximums to the total and meaning that the pair would eventually classify with 12th place overall. That bit of drama then would of course go in the favour of everyone behind, and for Ryan and Darren Cook in a chasing position it would now be 2nd. They were having a few problems of their own though, having to weld the diff mounts throughout the day, but importantly things on the course were at least going to plan. Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd were trying to make a comeback from their day 1 problems and end this morning's runs with 3rd. It wasn't the result that they could have had, nor the one that they came for, but a podium would be a welcomed finish. Just 3 more runs lying ahead to decide that final position, and a lot of work to do throughout those 3 runs, no doubt. Phil Bayliss and Lance Murphy will be climbing closer to those podium positions as well. 4th place for the pair now, although the gap between themselves and Rowlands up ahead was never going to be closed on run times alone. But we've seen enough attrition this weekend and enough drama throughout the field to make it just possible enough. For Austin Riley and Philip Richards, it would be 6th at this stage in the event. They'd be hoping for nothing major to do in service now, as Dan from their service crew had to drive 3 hours each way overnight to go home for family commitments. Hopefully, he was getting time for a little nap while the crew were out on the course. Things were still going to plan, meanwhile, for Steve Smith and John Griffith. They keep that steady pace to end the morning with 7th overall, 2nd in the class. And Mark Jacks and Adam Nicholson still with that lead in the championship, don't forget, wouldn't gain any more positions through the morning's runs, but they were closing the gap. They had just 16 seconds to catch Smith and a further 2 minutes to Riley. Could they gain any of those positions through the afternoon? It would take a big push. Having not raced since October last year, Harry Nicol and Emily Sibley will be more than happy with their pace this weekend. There was still some setup to be done on the suspension to get it perfect, but 9th place to end the morning was certainly good going. And rounding out the top 10 now will be Jesus Navarro and Raquel Dorado. The pair still putting in good times throughout the morning in that McRae Enduro. After that tuition with Dave Hooper, things were going well for Victoria Vaughan. Matthew Rowland now back in that hot seat. The times were coming down and the pace was good. 11th place overall for now, looking like the Beers would be on Victoria tonight. And just behind on the overall leaderboard were Chloe Jones and Chris Aldridge. The pair had knocked another 20 seconds off their run times this morning, and the feeling inside the car was reported as being pretty good. Things were still going smoothly for Richard Lane and John Tomley. They continue at the same pace on day 2, reaching the midpoint in the day with 13th overall, just 3 runs remaining. And things were still going to plan in the other bowler too, with Richard Hayward and Greg McLeod ending the morning in 14th overall. For Richard Green and Richard Griffith, the times were good, but sadly they were unable to gain any positions on the leaderboard. There was a chance that the pair could gain a position, but it was looking likely that 15th would be where they would end this weekend, without something big changing up ahead. So we've just got a few more runs to go, and the results here at Bovington are all changed. Birchall looking good for victory, but of course anything could happen, and it pretty much already had. On we go to the final runs of the weekend, and indeed the final results then. Rounding out the finishers would be Richard Lane and John Tomley. It would be Electrical Gremlings putting them down the order though, meaning they miss out on a better result that was looking likely earlier in the weekend. For Chloe Jones and Chris Aldridge, it would be 14th to end the day. They unfortunately lose out on the class victory, having held the lead there for most of the day, but second in the class was still a welcomed and a well-deserved result. That loss of the class lead would be due to a last-minute climb up the leaderboard for Richard Green and Richard Griffiths, taking that class victory by just 21 seconds at the end of a hard-fought event. For Victoria Vaughan and Matthew Rowland, it would be 11th. A good end to the event for the pair. Victoria, of course, usually navigating for Rob Boole, but with his car not ready this weekend, she brought her own out to have some fun in the championship. And with the help of Dave Hooper and that coaching on day 1, she certainly did that. On to our top 10 overall finishers then, and it would be Richard Hayward and Greg and Charlotte McLeod rounding out those places. That maximum on day 1 preventing them from being a few places higher up on the results. A great debut on the British Cross Country Championship for Jesus Navarro and Mikel Dorado would see them end the event with 9th place on the leaderboard, as well as the class win this weekend. Great to see something different and a new competitor out doing the business in this championship. It would be a class win too for Harry Nicol and Emily Sibley after a strong day. They take the top spot in class 17 as well as 8th place overall. For Steve Smith and John Griffiths, it would be 7th. The pair had been happy with things all weekend, as it showed on the course. They get a good result from this weekend as well. For Ocean Riley and Philip Richards, it would be 6th. A great result in a pretty standard car, let's not forget that. They take first place in the Trophy Rally Cruise on what was a pretty tough course as well this weekend, as shown from the attrition that we've seen right through the field. That comeback for Mark Jacks and Adam Nicholson was probably better than they would have been expecting. The drive, perhaps, of a champion. At least the drive of a championship leader coming into this round. Midway through day 1, their diffs locked up, but they put in some good times following this, reaching the end of the event with 5th overall. There'd be last-minute frustration and last-minute problems for Ryan and Darren Cook, the pair on track for a strong result. But sadly for them, the diff would fail on the final run close to the finish, meaning that they dropped down the order into 4th. So that, of course, meant it would be a very surprised Phil Bayliss and Lance Murphy taking yet another podium position this weekend. Their afternoon hadn't been without its problems. The breaks probably would have lasted about another run, so they would be thankful of the finish and of course for those 3rd place points. For Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd then, it would be 2nd. It wasn't the family 1-2 that looked possible with that strong start to the event for the Rowlands, but at least there would be one of them on the podium this weekend. 2nd place, a strong end to the event for the pair, especially with the championship in mind. But all of that, of course, means keeping their nose clean at the front of the field. It's victory for Justin Birchall and Johnny Kunja. No repeats of their non-finish from the previous round, and a good run to the finish to claim another win and put their championship campaign back on track as we cross into the final leg of the season. So here's your confirmation then of the results at round 4 of the British Cross Country Championship. A great fight for that victory all weekend gives Birchall maximum points, and with 2 rounds remaining, things are still far from over.
No, it's been pressure I really didn't need to put on myself. Sweet Lamb was going really well. We had a 3-minute lead, and then on the Sunday we thought, right, we don't need to push on, we can back off, and I backed off and put it on its lid. So that was the last time I said I'll ever back off. So put undue pressure on ourselves there. And then the course changed last minute, Bovington south, so that psychologically gets you. And so Saturday we were just really trying to get my head into gear, and then get the car set up because once it's so wet out here, you can't get the power down, then you can't get on top of the whoops, and then you're just endless event of I think I did lodge the lung on the last one, so but it's we've managed to pull it back today. It worked harder on the car, worked more on the suspension, it's dried out, so it's come in our favour, but the Can-Ams have definitely got it for down here.
Yeah, it's good out there, suited the buggies. Blew a belt yesterday, which took 5 minutes to change, so it's put us out of contention really. Jason was leading, but he's had a bit of a disaster this morning, broke a ball joint and bent all the front end, so he sort of threw it away. He could have just took his time, but good course for the buggies, good event.
It was literally only a minute ago I found I got it. It's obviously good to get third, but not in them circumstances. It proves Bovington's a bit of a killer. I said halfway through the day, until the end, who knows where we're going to end up, and I was happy with 5th about 10 minutes ago. So to be third now, that's really good, really pleased with that. Nearly didn't make it on the last one, had a bit of an off, but oh well, made it to the end, so all good.
It's good, yeah. Car kind of suits the roughness of the course, I suppose. Can't stay with the faster guys, but it's kind of alright in ours. Only one mishap, one shaft, so happy days.